Eagle-centric call.
There you go. Man, it's funny because when I sent you that LinkedIn message, I was in a different position than I am today. I was applying for jobs and I made a super cool video to apply for this agency, and then they kind of ghosted on me a little bit, just because they went with someone else, which is fine. But I was a little lost in terms of like what to do next and how to apply. For a team that I was looking for is like small to mid-sized agency that are doing killer work. And especially because I don't have somebody to learn from right now in my current position, or I didn't, now that I have this new position. But I guess my question, I have, 3 or 4 questions that I wanted to ask you in minutes. But yeah, now that I have that position and I'm starting next week, these people I really look up to, and I feel like I would love to get insights from you since you own an agency. What's the attitude that you feel like a young designer that is joining the agency should have, and something that I should focus on starting there?
Cool. Wait, so where are you headed? What's the agency?
I don't know if I'm allowed to say, but obviously you can
Oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. Like, they're awesome.
They're insane.
That's
and
great.
Their work is so good. Yeah.
I'll blank it out, or I'll wait until you start or whatever. But
okay.
That's great. They're awesome. That's really cool. What are you going to be doing there? Just general design, type specific?
Brand identity. Yep.
Nice.
Brand identity, graphic design, mostly.
Very cool. Wait, so how did you get in with them?
It's all because of this video. I made this video about, they were opening a position for brand identity designer, and I made a whole video about like me really passionately liking their work and like trying to work with somebody who I can look up to and learn from. And they saw the video and they were like, since you're waiting for, an answer from them, come and work with us for this freelance project, and then you can just like wait while you do that. And then I took it very seriously. They asked me to do some stuff, and I did. I overdid it. Like, I did way more than they asked me, and they were like, you know what? Like, we liked your attitude, and we love the work that you're doing. Do you want to join the team? And that's how I got the opportunity. That's like the short story.
Hell yeah, that's amazing. That's the vibe.
Yep.
I feel like that's how you do it. It's like the only way to do it these days, it seems. It's like just go over the top.
Right.
I mean, it's even like getting new clients is the same way, right? Like, it's like, hire us. It's like, well, why? Like, no, I have an agency, or, I want, like, why? You got to give me something. It's like you got to almost do all this extra work just to get the job, just to go do the work and get the job, and it like never ends. So but that's awesome. I'm stoked for you. They're so cool, and their work is so great, and they're just lovely humans. So that's sick. That'll be really cool.
Yeah, you being an agency owner, like if you were to hire somebody that's really looking up to you, doing killer work, what's the attitude? What's something that you would expect from that person joining the team, I guess?
I think you're fine. What you did to get this job is the attitude. It's just be super fucking keen, do anything and everything that they ask for, and then some. I have weird little rules that I always like. I think like ideas that I've done in the past, not necessarily with people here, but like I've always implemented in the past on like as I was a DD or CD on teams and had a bunch of people under me, is like, a lot of the time, whether you're a design director or creative director, or the two of them are both of those things, and owners, they're going to be asking you for probably specific things. And sometimes designers are just like, all right, they'll either do the thing and be done with it, and it's like, cool, here's what you asked for, or they'll do the opposite of the thing, which is how I was for a long time, and that is wrong, and do the opposite of the thing and be like, wait, this is better. And I really like, the best way I think you can go about it is like, you get the brief, here's what we're looking for, and whether it's, very specific or very open-ended, do it exactly how they're asking for it and do it absolutely perfect. But then in addition to that, do it your way. Whether that takes you more time, that's kind of on you, but I think you need to invest the time, right? Like give what they're looking for in the brief 110%, and then go do it exactly how you think you will do it. So when you show up to a crit, you go, all right, I asked for X, Y, and Z, and you go, here's my X, Y, and Z. And then you take them through it, and they're like, cool, great, make these edits. Also, this is how I think it should be given the brief that you gave me and working through these options. And then you have kind of like your version up there. It'll be different. It'll be challenging their brief. They might fucking hate it. But it doesn't matter, right? Like you kind of are exploring and you're beating up the brief a little bit. And that's what I really like when people bring to it. And that's what I try and do. I try and relate like how a junior designer to a creative director approaches a project is how I also approach clients. So like same thing with clients. Like, yeah, they're looking for something very specific 9 times out of 10. And we show them, the 3 routes, but the route 1 should be exactly what they're looking for. Because if you don't, and this goes for clients and this goes for, your creative directors, if you don't show them what they're looking for, that's all they're still thinking about in the back of their mind, right? They're constantly being like, well, I wanted this one fucking thing, and make this one fucking thing for me, please. Versus, here you go, here's the thing, and here's why it's correct. Right? That's a good idea. You're a pretty good creative director. Or this is why you're completely fucking wrong, because I did it better, and here you go, and you show them. So it like, and it's the same with the client, right? Like, here's why, like, okay, you asked for this, but like it's not right, and here's what is right. It always works. And either way, even if they hate all of the work, you see that you've taken the time and the initiative to do exactly what they're asking for and your own version of it, and that was worth it in and of itself. So that's how I would show up to briefs and to crits is like just doing a little bit extra on everything. I mean, your story about how you landed the job in the first place is just doing a lot extra, right? And just getting more work in front of them because they're seeing how you think, in the end of all of this, it's seeing that you're a good designer. You can take direction without fighting back or being annoying, which like a lot of people can't do, candidly. They all have their own vibes.
Right.
Maybe I've been that way in the past too. I don't know. I've learned my lessons, but it also shows your way of thinking that you could do what they're asking for and you can think their way, but you can also think your own way, and that your way might be solving the problem as well. So you're just by doing that, it's not a ton more work on you, but you're bringing so much more to the table, and you're showing your breadth of work, both the way you think, but also the way you create at the same time. So I think it's very valuable.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
You just got to work. You got to do more work. But you didn't land where you landed not wanting to work. So
right. No, I'm like extremely pumped, especially because I don't think that I worked at an agency that has that, like they raise the bar so much. And for me, it's like, I know it's going to be a learning curve to go up to that level and maintain it there, because I haven't done that in the past, but it's like such a good challenge to take on that I'm like excited, even if that means like doing extra hours or whatever.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I'm not like, rise and grind hustle culture person by any means, but like I've said this many times before, it's like you gotta really fucking like this job, and you gotta just want to work extra. Vin's listening. He told me the other day that he just goes home and opens up Illustrator, and that's like his quiet time. Is that how you phrase it? Like, we gotta really care, which I think like everyone. Will's also listening in, but I think everyone on this call and in this room are kind of like that. Like you just like give a shit and like to do this stuff. So it shouldn't be. I'm not saying like grind for no reason. I'm saying grind to like get better and to upskill and to show your thinking. And you should like doing it. So it shouldn't feel like you're just, working extra hours because you feel like you have to, because like the company's grinding you. That's by no means the vibe. It's more like do it because you want to do it.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense. And talking about that, like practicing on your own time, I know you're big on this because I've heard like a couple podcasts on you talking about it. There's a problem that I'm having right now when I go online and I try to search for inspiration, whatever, I feel like so mad at myself because my skills are not up to that level. And it could be anything like animation, illustration, design, whatever it is. Like, I feel like everybody has like such an advantage on me. Is that something that you feel like happened to you, or like anybody on your team? Like, how do you deal with that?
You said it. I mean, it's imposter syndrome at its finest. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And it's like if you, there's a lot of times I just like straight up take the project and redo it and copy it, and then you like along the way you figure it out like a couple other things that you're like, oh, that's how they did that. You know, even if it's like minor stuff like addition to like your knowledge like that, it's like it's so helpful.
Yeah. It just sounds like imposter syndrome.
Yeah, but it's like every single person.
All of us. I mean, that's why you just hire people to do the things you can't do. But no, I mean, you know, you work in teams. That's why you do work in teams, because everyone has something to offer differently. But I do think it's imposter syndrome, like he's saying. I do think you don't need to know how to do everything. And I don't think you should do everything. I know how to use a little After Effects, but he's over here doing a drawn out script logo that like I'm never gonna do as good as Will can do. But I don't need to, right? Like he's like far more into motion and really likes doing that type of work, and I'm that's not kind of my thing. So I think like picking your lane too, expanding and learning, but just learning. Let me start over. Ignore everything I said. What I think you should do is you should try and practice and learn in all different areas. I don't, you know, illustration, type, animation, motion, whatever, 3D for all I care. I never want to make a 3D object, but I know loosely how to fire up Blender and get it going. I know how to use the Adobe one, which I'm blanking on, and to make a can. It looks like shit, but I know it. And I think you need to do all of those things because eventually you will become a director of sorts. Whether that's you want to be a super duper senior and you still want to be designing, but you're going to be directing people at some point in your career. So knowing how to do all of these little things on a just super simple rudimentary level will make the work that much better. So you don't have to, I think, focus on what you're good at, obviously. Focus on learning different things. And that just goes for like life. Like learning all different areas of life will make the design work or the creative work better, right? Like reading a book that has nothing to do with design will make the design better. This is just how learning and education works, right? But I do think like it is helpful. We were just doing website edits is a perfect example. I have no clue how to code. I mean, I learned it, I forgot it. It's like a foreign language. It's just like doesn't stick in my brain. But I know enough of how the functionality of it all works, how it's going to put breakpoints and how it's going to display on different screens, all the basic shit that most people know. I just need to have that bit of understanding so that I can guide the developer to really get it to where I want it to go. So it's more of a director, you know, on that. So it's worth learning a little bit to get into it. I don't think that's what you were asking. I think you were just feeling imposter syndrome on like how on your skill level. That's just reps. I mean, if we're talking just simple typography, right? Like if you just want to get better at hand doing typography, he's incredible. He is the best one in this studio at hand drawn type. Like we could put him up against some of just full blown typographers. This morning he spent 30 minutes drawing an M, like with points and making sure the points are right and just practicing how to draw out that M. And there was a mistake that I saw definitely I'm just kidding. There was, you know, just like figuring out curves and practicing curves. Like that's a ridiculous statement to have someone who is a super duper senior over here, like practicing curves on an M. But it's just reps, right? Like if you don't go to the gym and lift weights, you're going to get weaker. It's the same. I do think it's the same thing. So I think like digging deeper into the nerdy parts that you really like to get better at, because you want to have somewhat of your own thing going, or what you're being asked of all day, right? Like you may, at your new job, you may be asked about doing far more script typography, making that up. But like, so you should probably be practicing script, even on a dumb, simple level. Who was it? I think, take Simon Walker is who he was just practicing how he makes curves on an M. The way Simon Walker makes a curve on an M is completely different from how I make a curve on an M, how he would do it out of the pen, and honestly how like a historical script from the 1950s would do it. So practicing like the contemporary to like maybe someone else on your team to hit historical is going to really give you a vibe of like how to do curves specifically on the, on the swoosh of an M or something. So getting nerdy on the, like what you need to be doing, even if it doesn't directly relate to the project at hand, I think is super helpful. And then doing other things in the kind of orbit of design, I think is helpful too. And just staying relevant because, hopefully you stay at this new job for a really long time. But if you ever wanted to go somewhere else, in 10 years time, let's call it, you're like, yeah, I know generally how to use spline or endless tools, and I have an understanding of these things. That's going to be super valuable. Just to know. I mean, that's going to be super valuable on day one of your new job because you're like, hey, I could bring this like thing to it. Will did that. We had a pitch. No one's 3D in this office. We have a 3D render guy that we use, Nelson. He's incredible. But we sometimes need to do it for projects, for pitches. And we were doing a pitch, and we needed a can spinning with like lava glowing off of it. And he fired up Spline, never used it before, figured out how to do it in a day, practiced, and just was like, hey, look, this works. And it was perfect. Was it the best 3D in the world? Yes. Yes. Is it ready for the case study?
No.
We got some edits. But it was like beyond, it was jaw dropping for a pitch. You were like, oh, it looked like it was ready for the case study, for the pitch. Client loved it. They'll never know that we did it with a free desktop app to make 3D. But like, it was so valuable. So you could just take that. Yeah, I mean, it took you how long? How many hours did it take you to learn it?
That one probably like 2 or 3.
2 or 3 hours to learn how to make a can spin that you can just do at nighttime or on a Sunday morning with your coffee, and then show up on Monday morning at your new job and be like, hey guys, I made this thing spin for the deck for Tuesday. You want to throw it in there? And they're going to lose their fucking mind. I did. That was the first hand. I was like, fuck, yes, this is great. This is exactly what we're looking for. This is such a value add. So I think that's another, I guess, answer to your first question is like, do it, figuring out, practicing, learning new things so that, and seeing how you can just bring them into the everyday. Everything we do is digital, so it's really easy. You don't have to go buy a fucking machine and then be like, hey, I got the machine to go make the thing. It's really easy. It's all free.
Right. Following up on the practice, I feel like I tried that for a week and I think I made it way too complicated. Like I had the schedule of like all the videos I was going to watch every single day and then like a checklist. How do you figure out what to do like and not freeze in the moment, what to practice?
You have your go-tos. So like tracing letters. I do the tracing old spirits labels. I'll just go Google 1960s bourbon bottle on Pinterest and you'll get a bunch of them. I'll pick the coolest looking one and just like try and match all the typefaces, find the contemporary cuts of it, and then maybe I'll redraw like a logo or something, whatever the thing dictates. I'll try and just recreate it. So the recreation is like, I know I got 30 minutes this morning, I'm just gonna go recreate it. Or like, I don't know, and then you just don't schedule it. Don't, I think schedule the time to where I'm gonna do this and don't worry about what pops out. This is, I encourage you never to post online about it. I think once you remove that, it's like, oh, cool, 30 days of type vibes where I'm going to make a letter every day. And fuck that, because then you're like worried about how good that letter is going to be, if it's going to work in the greater system. Then it's a design project. This isn't about design projects. This is about purely drawing, like getting out a piece of paper on a sketchbook, draw that page, and then rip that page up and throw it in the trash. It's about reps. I don't go to the gym and record bench pressing and then post it online, right? So it's like, but I do it once a week or whatever, and then I don't do that. But like, I don't go to the gym and record my workouts and then go post them online and like want anything from it. I just do that because I know later that's going to help me get stronger and progress. Don't worry about it. Just like go. Copy shit. Like go to there's 2 hacks. So pick some random letters. Go to Simon Walker's, recreate everything Simon Walker does. He's super fucking good. Rob Clark is another typographer that we use all of the time. That's incredible. Go recreate that, because those curves, you're never gonna figure out those curves unless you redraw his curves specifically, because they are proper. And you're not trained the way that they're trained to go do that. So you're just gonna like learn something regardless. And those 2 dudes do it completely different. Get some old bourbon or spirits. Spirits are so fucking weird, they make no sense why they were laid out that way from the early 1900s to the mid-century. So you can recreate that, which will teach you about pack hierarchy that is a non-traditional pack hierarchy, and just recreate it. If it looks like shit, fucking pick a new one and do a new one tomorrow. It doesn't matter. You spent the time to like lay it out and do the thing. Go to your last saved image on Instagram. I'm gonna do this right now. Send it to you. You can do this one tomorrow.
All right.
Let's see. Oh, boom. This one's a good one too. Go to your last saved image on Instagram and remake it from scratch. And this is what I saved. Screen grab that. Just re-fucking draw it.
I got it.
This is the weirdest one possible. It's perfect. Absolutely perfect. This guy's also sick while we're here. Signs and Crimes is another top one. That's really weird type. Just gonna recraft it. That's it. Don't show me. See if you can get it perfect. Or maybe you like it, it's cool, throw some play around with textures, figure out how to do a new texture trick, and then you can post it if you want. But I think the goal is to not post it. Just like make the thing and move on. Go recreate the Eagles logo. Go pick an old Eagles logo and recraft it. You're just gonna figure out how to like make things and draw things in a way that you just wouldn't naturally do. It would be a thing different from what you do every day, and that's the goal.
Yeah, that's one thing that I noticed when I started practicing like that my brain is wired in a way, and when I start copying, I see like what someone else did when they were coming up with that thing.
Yeah.
But follow-up question with the practice, how do you find a similar font? Like, do you just go on Adobe fonts, like Creative Market, like whatever it is that you, how do you not, I guess this is the better question, how do you not spend the 30 minutes looking for a font instead of replicating the design?
Okay, how I don't spend 30 minutes looking for fonts, because I will either draw it crudely and I'll fix it later, but draw it as fast as possible, or my ultimate hack is I take Trey Gothic for everything and I stretch and skew it to match. And so I have an old whiskey label. I drop it to 50%. I take only Trey Gothic, which I have tall, extended. It is a full family, right? So you have the tall, extended, bold to light. Use all of those, and anything that doesn't fit within that, which is probably a lot because you're talking about like a 1950s weird hand typeset thing, I'll stretch and skew it to match, and I'll kern it with the shitty stretching and skewing. And then on the next round, the next day, I'll go and look for the specific fonts. But my goal when I recreate things like that, where it's like I'm trying to match it perfectly, so I want to get a font close enough that I can modify, or I want to just get something in there to lay out, like I'm saying, the stretching and skewing. And if you do that, you start to see that there's a really weird, odd hierarchy to spirits design that is completely different from anything you see in the grocery store. And it is completely fucked, especially in the 40s, 30s, 40s, 50s. Fucked. Makes no sense. But that's what makes it like so premium and so perfect and so like the sauce to all of it. And you learn by just laying it out and stretching and shit out that you're like, oh, that's why those pieces fit into those boxes where. And so, again, it's not about finding the perfect font and doing that, unless that's the exercise you're trying to do. It's about the uncovering weird moves and weird layouts that you wouldn't figure out yourself. Because even me, who like has this, I think the thing I'm best at is spirits, and laying out a very elaborate, weird, Stranger and Stranger, Chad Michael, all those guys that just fuck it with type of layout, and they're all inspired by this old stuff. That's what I'm good at, but I'm out of the gate without reference, without thinking and putting my head in that mindset, which is the mindset I pretty much exist within all of the time. I'm still not going to make the moves. So it's like, it's a reference exercise, but it's also a weird layout exercise of getting you to make those different moves. on the font thing, download Monotype for desktop.
Gotcha.
And it like acts as your font book. So you can go through that, but that's Monotype is my fonts. So screen grab, typeface, put in what the font, find what the font is, get it close, go into Monotype, and then you can work with it live.
Do we have one more question? Like talking about practice. I know this is kind of like an abstract question, but I know that your guys' work is very conceptual. Like the reasoning behind the design is very specific and intentional. And I don't know if there's a way to practice that. Do you think like that comes with experience or like, yeah, I think the intentionality, I mean, the way that you guys present your work in your case studies is like, you can see that whatever color, line, typeface that you put in there had an intention behind it. And sometimes I fall short on coming up with intention and reason for the things that I choose more than just style, you know? Mm-hmm. How do I like come up with a way to practice that kind of conceptual skill, if there's anything that you can think of?
I think the easiest way that I would do it is write. Don't design, write. So you get a brief. I would sit there, and this is what I used to do actually as a designer. So maybe this is helpful, maybe it's a waste of time, but I think anything you do will just be helpful in general to get to a better design. I would research generally what that is. So let's say you get a bourbon bottle. That's a contemporary bourbon, not an old one, not a historical one. I would do research. Step one would be research. I would find out as much as humanly possible about bourbon. As what time allows. Go on deep Reddit. Tequila. We'll do tequila because tequila, we were doing like a strategic piece for tequila, which is really interesting. But it was a tequila that's 50 years old, but it really plays in the contemporary space. 30 years old, but it plays in the contemporary space. So we went to Mexico. Obviously, you're not going to go do that. But Lisa, our strategist, went crazy in Reddit to really understand like what people who like this specific type of tequila like. And there's like a coding system for where the tequila is made that directly links to the distilleries. And they have all these different codes, and people like dissect the codes. And it's like nerd ass shit for tequila that like you'll only find in deep Reddit. I would go there. I would go to historical elements of tequila. Why? Where it started? You know, just the history of tequila. Like really understand what the product is on its base level and do all that research. It can be easy. It will be like a bit of Googling, and it's just desktop where you aren't a strategist kind of responsible for all of this. So you should kind of know, you should know as much as the strategist on the team knows though from the jump. And then from that, you're going to find some cool things. There's going to be an idea that surfaces within all that information. You understand what the product itself is. You're then you'll see what the competition is, because naturally that'll be done in your research. And from there, you'll start to see gaps of what people aren't doing, what was cool in the past. I always go to the past. It's super easy that way, because it's why the product started is the reason for why it exists today. So whether it's tequila or any CPG product. So within there, you'll start to see themes or trends or something interesting, or just the weirdest possible thing. Like, they burnt the agave in this type of way in this specific place, and that's really cool. You can create a whole story out of there. So I think a lot of research, and then just write. I used to write like lists of things, just like 1 to 2 word ideas, and just like a word dump of ideas of what that could be. And start really bad. Tequila, agave, distilling, copper pot, you know, and then as you start just word vomiting down the list, you'll get more interesting things. Humidors, the tool that the humidor uses, and so on and so forth. And then you'll start to get interesting things that you can then use, because now you have just a list of things, of stuff. Describe the concept in which you're going. So now you have a deep understanding of where you are, of what the product is, and kind of like items and things and ideas that surround that you can start building and crafting a label from. So like the metal sheath on the thing that the humidors use can be the reason why you made the closure on the bottle a piece of like, patinaed metal, because that directly relates back to the cutting of the agave, and the agave is within the liquid, which is within the bottle, and that's what keeps it all closed, right? Just made up some, I don't think that's bullshit. I made up like a lofty story out of kind of nothing. That's just a generic tequila. Obviously, you need to go deeper into what the brand is, why they're different, and so on and so forth. But that starts to bring in the intentionality of why you're bringing in these pieces. I think don't make a mark. Like, don't just make a cap because you think it's cool because you saw someone else did a wood cap that was square versus cylindrical. Find materials, textures, ideas, concepts within the product, the brand, or the creation of the product. For instance, tequila, which is a kind of romantic process to begin with, and then bring that into the design. Here's the trick. When the client or even your creative director says that's a bad idea, they can't really say that, because it's a bad idea that I use the tool of the trade that is the product as the closure. It's like the only real reason is like it gets more like, I just don't like that, versus you made the wrong decision. You're always making the right decision if you're extremely intentional with where and why you're pulling from it. Maybe you pull from the wrong place, that's when you're wrong. But you're not going to if you do all your research. There's a lot of upfront work that kind of gets you there. And then we could talk about big ideas, but that's a 2-hour call. But I think starting there with your intentionality of all mark making is really going to help. The list always helped me, because I would always draw, as I'm then designing a bottle, I'd always go back to that list of like different things. So I'm like, what is the closure? I didn't really think this through. What is the closure going to be? Well, how do I incorporate this into the story? I probably should have done that from the start, but I didn't. So like it's a process, right? And then I can start to pull from that list and start to build from that. And I believe, and I'm glad that comes through in the work, but I believe if you're just making marks for the sake of it, you're just an artist. You're not really a designer. You need to be making mark. Every mark needs to be intentional, and every mark has to come from somewhere that directly relates or tells a story about the brand, or else it doesn't matter. Then it's not branded. It's not ownable to that brand. So by doing this, at least it kind of kickstarts you into the development of that. And that bottles are really easy for me to talk about because you have so many different textures and materials and elements and places to put on the pack. But that goes for a logo too, right? That goes for a piece of hand drop type. The way that it swooshes evokes whatever feeling, or you're really lofty with it too.
It's really helpful. It sounds to me like you really have to be curious about it, like really dive deep and like find stuff that is out there.
Definitely. Fred Hart. I listened to a thing. Fred Hart's great. I'm sure you're familiar with him. If you're not, look him up. Follow him on LinkedIn. He has really a lot of CPG, creative strategy knowledge, and pieces. But he was on a podcast I listened to recently that was just like, how do you break in? He's very much in the like new CPG world of things and all these emerging brands, and has worked on tons of them that you've seen. And he was like, you just really you need to speak the same exact language as the client. So like, and that's what I mean by the research, right? Like if I'm making a tequila and I don't even know what what type of metal they use, or the tool that they use, the humidors use with Koa. If you don't know what the Koa is, why the fuck are you going to work with me? Work with someone who actually understands what the fuck this industry is, right? So it's like, and that was his whole point, is like, you need to go so deep and understand everything about it. And that's why we are highly specialized, where we really like to focus on alcohol, because we do know the ins and outs of that industry. And that doesn't just mean the process of making it. That means the process of selling it, how to change perceptions and consumers, and how consumers understand it, like really going into all of it. It's just this constant like learning and practicing at the end of the day, and getting there that ultimately makes the work better. Because the work that you see that it is so great, and it's very nice that you called it out about ours, but I do think of this about all good work, and only good work is they didn't just do it because it was fucking cool, because they're like styled steez lords or anything, right? Like they're doing it because it makes sense and it comes from a place and it has this rich, deep thought behind it and strategy behind it. And that's what makes the work good. So without the research, you're just an artist. And I think majority of your time should be research. Doing the design is pretty easy and shouldn't take any time at all, right? Like that's what we're good at. That's what we know how to do. That's what we do every day. That's why we practice. That's why we put the reps in, so we could just do it real quick when we have to. But the research is what kind of gets you there in a good place.
It's cool, man. Well,
Nice.
I appreciate the time.
Yeah, dude.
And thanks for the guys also chiming in with their advice too. I appreciate that.